and welcome to the Momversation Club, the podcast born out of the idea that every mum needs a tribe. I'm Claire Strong.
And I'm Christina Struckmeyer. We're two moms just like you, navigating the chaotic, challenging, and often isolating world of motherhood.
Now, it's said that it takes a village to raise a child, but we want to know, where the F is that village?
It's a question that resonates with so many of us who find ourselves raising children, managing careers, all while trying to maintain our own identities, often with a sense of isolation.
Yeah, but we're here to remind you that you're not alone. The Momversation Club is your village, a place where you feel valued, appreciated, and understood.
We believe that by sharing our own experiences, successes, and struggles, that we can create a virtual village for all you amazing mamas out there.
So join us every week for honest, raw, and relatable discussions about all aspects of being a mum, including the stuff you just can't talk about with anybody else.
So if you've ever asked yourself where the F is the village, well, you found your tribe. Let's get into it.
Hi, Christina.
Hey, Claire, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I have been very productive today. I'm feeling really on top of it, which rarely happens as a mom. I'm like soaking in that last bit of summer, and I've recently got the calendar for the next school year. And I sat down on my calendar, my digital calendar, and I inputted all of the minimum days and the school breaks and the timelines for everybody's schedules and everything into my calendar way ahead of the school year, just so I was ready. And I'm feeling really good about that.
Wow. Oh my God. You're setting the bar pretty high here. Okay. So I need to get my, you-know-what into gear and do the same. Because I currently don't even know what the first day of school is. I need to check the date for that. But
I feel like I have it on paper, like I have it on my digital calendar. That doesn't mean I'm not going to forget my kid or lunch or a dress up day. Just because it's on the calendar doesn't mean it happens. But it is there. And it leads me to today's topic because as I was putting in all the school breaks and all of the different start times and end times, I'm thinking about like, when can we plan vacations? When can we do trips? When can we get out?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And today's episode is all about going out because it's actually, we're going to chat today about traveling with kids. And I know that it's something that, depending on the age of the kids, can be quite the traumatic experience. So we're going to share our experiences of traveling with kids, and then maybe we can chat about some of the things that have worked for us along the way. So first of all, because you've been away quite a bit this year and your kids are still young, especially your youngest. So how did you get on with your Mexico trip? So obviously there's a plane ride involved, different country, different time zone. Tell me how all of that unraveled.
So, yes, I have two little ones. So I have a 9-year-old, almost 10, and then an almost 2-year-old. And we did our first plane trip when she was just shy of 1 year old. It was for a Disneyland trip on her birthday. It wasn't for her birthday. It just kind of timed out that way. And that trip was only like a 45-minute flight, because we're in California to California. And I thought it would be a really good trial run to see how my Mexico trip, which was going to be a couple months from then, would seem and how it would look. And you know what's interesting, Claire, is that trip went so well, okay? Like the trip to Disneyland went so well. We packed all the right stuff. She fell asleep on the way there. She fell asleep on the way back. She was a little angel, smiling at everyone, adorable. And when we got to the place, Disneyland set up for children. So everything was so smooth sailing, crib in the room, not a problem, playpens, all the things. You didn't have to worry because like if you did have something you needed, it was nearby, like you could just grab it. Cut to a couple months later, taking a toddler and my other daughter to Mexico. Way different situation.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It was an experience. I completely understand why people do not travel with small children because it was so difficult. Not only with like the logistics of like figuring out the toddler, but like toddlers don't like to stay in one space. And when you're in an airplane, you have to stay in one spot. And I felt like she was screaming as if we were abducting her, like the entire flight. Things were real bad. And then my husband and I, through the whole trip in Mexico, were just like, it was just like on edge, is what I would describe it for the whole week. I feel like when you're traveling with young kids, and you're out of your element, you're out of all the things that you have, you're kind of up against it. I mean, have you ever traveled with little kids? Because you have teens, and you have traveled, I'm sure. But what was your experience traveling with littles?
So when my girls were 6 months old and two, I moved from England to France. So I was tripping back and forward from France and England all the time with the girls, and I was often on my own. In fact, I was on my own like most of the time. And so yeah, it's a lot. I remember one flight, oh my God, it was a horrible, horrible experience. I'm still traumatized. So we had arrived at this little tiny airport in France, near to where we lived, called Carcassonne. It's the world's smallest airport. And we got there in plenty of time. And I was feeding Eva, who would have been, not even a year old at that point, maybe 9 months, something like that. So I was feeding her and then I was changing her. And long story short, we missed check-in. And even though, but I need to explain to
Oh
you, this
no.
airport is the size of like someone's front room, someone's living room. It's tiny. And so I saw the queue starting to move. So I went to the desk and just said, "Hi, I'm just checking in." And she said, "Oh no, check-in's closed." I said, "I'm sorry, what?" I said, "I've been here an hour." I said, "I've just been tending to my kids." Um, I said, "What do you mean it's closed? Like, I can physically touch the person in front of me who is like part of this queue, this line." And she was adamant that there's absolutely no way that we could join the flight. She apparently called the pilot and asked him, and he said no. Although to this day, I highly doubt she called the pilot and asked if he was going to let a mum on with two babies who was literally at
Yeah.
the end of the queue. I think she was just bluffing. So she took a huge dislike to me. And then because I was getting stressed, bearing in mind I'd got a 9 month old, a 2 year old, I'd got my dad waiting in England at the airport ready to get us. I'd only got enough formula for the journey basically, because in my head I was going back home to England, so I'd be able to get formula again there for Eva. And I only had enough nappies or diapers, as you call them in the US, to last me the journey. I mean, I'd packed enough, but I hadn't, packed 2 days worth or something. Because again, I was
Oh my
going to
gosh,
be
Claire, the
so
stress of that is
I was,
making my
it
like
gets
heart
worse.
palpitate.
It gets worse. Okay, so this is it. So because I'm clearly stressed that the woman's saying to me, "You can't board this flight," and I'm thinking, my God, like I'm literally stranded at the airport. My ex-husband had dropped us off, so I had no car. I got my dad waiting at the other end with these two little ones. And so because I was voicing my displeasure, I mean, I wasn't swearing or being aggressive actually, but she called the security, and the security came, and they said because I was acting so irrationally that I must be concealing drugs. And so they then proceeded to take me into a room and strip search me. So I was totally naked, and someone
Oh
took
my
my
God.
baby away. Someone took the baby away while they were strip searching me. I mean, like, I had to take everything off, Christine. It was ridiculous. And then after that, they gave me back my baby, and I had to wait for the next flight, which was about 4 hours later. But I was lucky there was even another flight. So the whole thing was just ridiculous. So that was that was my most
Oh
stressful
my
trip.
gosh.
I'm still traumatized
Did
to this
you
day.
did you do anything
You
afterwards?
know
Like as
what?
far
I
as
think
like
I was so
legal action or any of that? That's
It
crazy.
is crazy. And with hindsight, I really should have. I think I was just so traumatized, Christina. And I was trying not to be really upset in front of the girls because I didn't want to upset them. And, when they took Eva away, I was just saying, "Oh, bye, sweetie, mummy will see you in a few minutes." I was really kind of having to play it down because I didn't want to stress either of them out. So I didn't take any
Yeah.
legal action. I should have done with hindsight, but I was just so, I just needed to get back to England and back to my family, and I was just so stressed. So that was the worst travel experience
Oh my gosh.
ever, ever. Yeah.
Well, that certainly beats like a crying baby on a plane, Claire. I mean, that is crazy traumatic. And I feel
Totally.
like in those situations, they have you over a barrel because when you're in an airport, like you're under their jurisdiction. You have to like make sure you're following the rules. You're going to get booted from the plane. You won't be able to get to your destination. You
Oh
have to
yeah,
cooperate.
you totally do.
Um,
Can I just add one thing to that story? So it did
yeah.
have a happy ending, actually.
Okay.
So after all that trauma, I had to book another flight basically, and the flight wasn't going to the airport that I was scheduled to go to. So I had to call my dad, and my dad, because he's such a nice dad, he'd do anything for his kids and his grandkids. He drove 4 hours from that airport down to London to get me from a London airport. So that's what he did. He said, "It's okay, I'm on my way. I'll change," and he drove down there. And so that was really nice. But when they said that I'd have to get the next flight, I said, okay, well, how does this work? And she said, oh, well, you're going to have to buy another, 2 tickets because I'd got the baby on my lap, but I had to buy a seat for Sophia, who was 2 at the time, and me. And I was in a real pinch financially at that time. I was going through a divorce. I was, a stay-at-home mom. I was teaching Pilates on the side just to put food on the table. I didn't have hundreds of euros to spend on another flight. That wasn't in my budget. And
Yeah.
so I said to her, I remember saying, I don't know how I can pay for this. I don't have the funds. Because it was not a cheap flight because it was last minute. It was, maybe 600 or 700 euros, something silly. And that was just not going to be an option for me. So I'm there thinking, like, what the hell am I going to do? Am I going to have to call my ex-husband to come and get us from the airport and take us back to our house in France? And this total stranger, this young guy who was only in his early 20s, came forward to the desk and he said, I'll pay for her tickets, put it on my card. And I was
Oh,
like, oh my
wow.
gosh. I was like, what? I was like, you don't need to do this. He said, I heard everything. He said, I've seen what's been going on, and I think they've treated you appallingly. And he said, this is just a goodwill gesture. He said, I don't want any money back. I don't want you taking my details. Let me just do this. And this total stranger bought our airfare and never wanted us to he wouldn't even let us exchange contact details because he
Oh
didn't
my
want me to call him
gosh.
back. So it was the
Was
most.
he handsome?
Well, I mean, he was a bit of a toy boy. He was like 22 or something. I was like
Oh,
32 or
okay.
something at the time. But
Got
um,
it.
so it was a little bit of a toy
It's
boy.
like
But I
seems
was
like he wants to be their daddy.
maybe. Now, I just could not believe. So I'd gone from a total trauma to this saint had just appeared in my life to save us from more carnage. So anyhow, so try and beat
Oh
that
my
one,
God,
Christina.
Claire. I can't. I can't. But I was gonna say though, the common thread is the fact that when you're in those situations, there's so much anxiety
Yeah.
already with getting there on time,
Yes.
making sure you're packed just so your bags are gonna fit, your kids aren't gonna scream, like all this stuff. And then to be presented with a block is so hard. And I on our trip back from Mexico, we had like a similar situation where I did not keep my cool. I think there's something about airports that they just bring out the worst in people.
They are high stress
I have
environments. They really are because
Yeah,
the
it's high
consequences,
stress.
yes, because the consequences of you not making something on time are very significant. It's not like, oh, it's okay, there's another bus in 20 minutes and it's only like $7. We're talking, especially when we're talking about international flights, it's very stressful. There's no room
It's
for
very
error.
stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like the plane ride's stressful, but then for me as like a toddler mom, the actual trip was more stressful
Yeah.
because when you're having small children, if you're going to a destination that isn't like a Disneyland where it's for small children,
Yes.
you have to like make sure everything's safe. The hotel rooms are not set up to be kid friendly.
Yeah.
When we walked into our Mexico trip location, we are so blessed that our family does like a vacation to Mexico every year,
Okay.
and we usually rent some sort of like villa situation where one room and there's another room and they're connected. And then there's like a little living room situation where there's like a kitchen and that kind of stuff. And so when I walked into this place, there's this giant glass table on wheels that moves around the whole room. And it's
Oh
huge.
God.
It's like the size of, I don't even know, like 2, 3 card tables put together. It's huge. And
Wow.
it's only like maybe 2 feet off the ground. So it's like toddler level and sharp corners everywhere. And there's nowhere to put it. So I'm like, well, that's here. They put all of the glass dishware on the bottom cabinets
Oh
of
gosh.
the kitchen
Mm.
with no locks. So it was just like in the room, constantly making sure she's not touching anything and trying to break anything or do anything. You got to the balcony and there is like this giant gap underneath the border for the balcony. So like it's like toddler sized where you can just like fall right off.
Oh, hang
And
on a
my
second.
anxiety,
1 minute. So, did you book a family room? Did you book this room under the proviso that it was child-proofed and good for toddler
no, I don't
usage?
think that they do that at this place. I think
Right.
that it's just you get what you get. Like this is a room that has multiple rooms. But you don't have the option. They don't have like a child-proofed room.
Okay.
If they did, I would upgrade no matter what the cost was because that would
Oh
give me
gosh.
so much like ability to calm down. So tip, like if you're going to a destination that isn't meant for kids, bring child-proof stuff. Things that are temporary, like that you can do quickly to lock stuff up because next trip we're definitely doing that because we're still in the stage of like opening things and grabbing stuff and moving things and it was
Okay.
stressful.
So, what would you have done differently then? So, if you were to do that trip again and stay in a hotel room that was very similar, what would you bring with you this time to make your trip less stressful?
Yes. So we did bring, and I would recommend it. And we have gotten next level over here at the Momversation Club. We have like an Amazon storefront
Yes,
where
we
you can like as we're talking about stuff, if we mention a product, we will put it in there for you guys because we are
do.
not gatekeepers. We want to make sure you can get the good stuff that we're getting. Side note, we do get a small little bump, but if you like us, support us.
Yes, it's a
But
win-win. Yes,
I
absolutely.
I Amazon these great safety locks for the doors because Stella's with us, and I was worried about her opening those hotel doors because they're very much like you just pull down and you can get
Yes.
out of the room. And so I did get those little locks for the top. I got locks for the sliding glass doors. So those were things I did bring.
Okay.
What I would bring next time is maybe safety locks that are like temporary, that like kind of slide in, slide out, not the kind you have to like adhesive to the cabinet because you don't want to do that. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do about that coffee table. I think we just pray and hope that no one cracks their head open because it's just there. There's not really much you can
You
do.
know, maybe if you are in that situation next time, do you think you could ask the staff to remove it? I bet you could. I bet you could say, "Can you take this out? Please? It's
Maybe.
dangerous." I think you should do that.
That's a great
Yeah,
idea. I
I bet you
didn't think
could.
to do that.
What about the
Yeah.
balcony though? Because the balcony, I mean, did you barricade it? Or, I mean, what did you do with it?
So we didn't acknowledge that there was a balcony. So what
Okay.
we would do is we would shut the curtains and lock the door and act like it didn't open. And then we
Really?
only opened it when the kids were down asleep. My older child knew, but my younger one was like, "Oh, well, how would she know it opens if we didn't tell her it
But
opens?"
that sucks because you're spending all this money to go on holiday, and just because you've got children, you shouldn't have to not enjoy the balcony because the balcony is dangerous.
I wish there was
It
a
needs to be
situation where I mean, it's not like I'm gonna
yeah,
like, hey, child, go out in the balcony and play by yourself unattended, but like
sure,
it
but
just takes 1 second
it
for her to slip
does.
under and I'm not right there and like she could fall.
So
Um,
one thing I find helpful if you're booking hotels or apartments or whatever on sites like Airbnb or Verbo and those types of sites, I find those quite helpful because you can see there's a definite rundown of what's included in the apartment. Quite often they'll mention if there's a crib there and all of that. But also, and I know this happens with hotels too, but I really like the fact that you can read the reviews and those properties are
mm,
rated. And I look for reviews. I mean, even though my girls are teenagers now, I do look for reviews from other families. For me, it's more the,
Yeah.
it was the pull-out bed was comfy for our kids. It's more that type of thing. I don't necessarily need to
Yeah.
look out for the, toddler-proofing cabinets or balconies,
No,
but I do
but I think,
still like to hear from other
yeah.
families and see how they experience that particular apartment. Because if someone said, brought our kids there, it was absolutely terrible, the location was awful, and, the area was unsafe, our teens couldn't go out, walking down to the shop on that, then I would not book that apartment.
Yeah. Yeah. Reviews from other parents are great. And if
Yeah.
you remember to go do a review,
Yes.
that
Yes.
would be helpful. Like if you
It
are
is.
a mother and you're
Yeah.
at a place and you don't think it's good, or you think it's really good, like go on
For
and
both.
review because
Yeah.
Claire looks at the
I
reviews.
do look at the reviews. I really do. In fact, we've just booked to go away to Hawaii. We're really excited because the girls have never been before. And
How fun.
one of the big things I was looking at. So for me, it was more location for the girls, so that they could, if they wanted to, without us, go and walk and get an acai bowl or whatever they want to do in Hawaii, and
Yeah.
and
Explore.
explore, yeah, and that there was a pool for them, so that maybe if Kyle and I are just wanting to have a chill for a few hours, they can, because they are old enough now to be able to go to a pool together and be pretty safe. So yeah, so we're really excited.
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited for
I'm
you.
excited too. Thank you. Oh my gosh, when we told them where we were going, they were so pumped. They've never been before, and I think they've got this image of Hawaii from Moana. The Moana, the Disney movie. I think they
Oh,
picture
yeah.
Hawaii to look like that, and it kind of does actually. I have been before, and
Oh,
so
it's beautiful.
yeah, so I can't wait to take them. So that's going to be fantastic. But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is
Well, I
different.
was just gonna say I love that we're doing that with our children, that we have the ability to do that because I will say I never went on any sort of airplane or went in anywhere like as far as like non-camping or something like that, like anywhere exotic. As a child, like I never traveled. My first airplane trip was for work as a professional. And so, well, that's not true. I went to grandma's house in Arizona one time when I was little, but like my first actual experience as an adult was like traveling, and it was a quick plane ride. But since becoming an adult and getting more professional with my career and marrying into a family that loves to travel, I've traveled a ton, and I'm learning more and more. I think if I had been raised with travel, I kind of wouldn't have been so unprepared for some of the things that I encountered with family trips. And I also think I would be a little bit better on those trips. So we've talked about anxiety on this show before.
Yeah,
And like we talked about in the airport, our anxiety is really high when you're at a situation with those kinds of stakes of if I don't get on this plane, things will be bad.
sure.
For me on those trips, it's hard for me with small children to relax. Like it's not really a vacation for me. It's more like I am now parenting in this new location without any of the tools and routines that I'm used to. And it is stressful.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about this, because this is a big bugbear for mums. So it sounds great. You're going on this, you're lucky enough to catch a plane and go somewhere hot and sunny. Very lucky. That's fantastic. However, do you get a break? Do you have downtime? Usually not, unless there's some sort of kids club you can put them in for a few hours. It's literally you're doing the same thing just in a different location. Oh, and you don't have all the comforts that you're used to at home, and so your routine's all
Yeah.
out. So actually, I know, because I remember this when the girls were young. It can actually be extremely tiring and stressful going on a holiday, particularly with younger kids,
Yeah.
because you don't have your structure in place. And so
No.
what should be a relaxing holiday is anything but, quite often, when you're holidaying with kids.
Yeah, and also something to note is if you're in a hotel room and your child goes down for the night, normally if you're in your home, that's your you time,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the time where you can watch Netflix or eat the junky food or like hang out with your husband, maybe have some sex. Like who knows? Things are crazy at
Who
night. After
knows?
8 p.m., things are wild, right? Um, but when you're in a hotel room, especially a shared hotel room, you have to be quiet. You can't do anything relaxing. You have to, like, your child's sleeping. So you're just in this quiet room trying to be quiet, and you're not able to interact or unwind or do any of those things. So a week of that, like when I'm on vacation, when we go to Mexico, it's usually about a week.
Yeah.
And it's like go, 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 go all day long, figuring out nap schedules, trying to make sure everybody's happy and fed and easygoing and not, sunscreened up and all the things. And then when it's bedtime, the time where I would normally go, wow, that was fucking crazy. Let me just, there is none of that. It is just, you're quiet until you fall asleep.
Yes, well,
And
so
so
yes,
it's a
that's
marathon.
funny, Christina, because when I was looking at this apartment that we've just booked in Hawaii, so we were trying. Kyle was trying to find somewhere that had two bedrooms, but Hawaii is extremely expensive. So all the two bedroom options were crazy money. And so I said to him, "Listen, like he was saying, well, we could do this nicer apartment, but just go for 5 nights." And I said, you know what? If we've got the option for going for 7 nights, but it's a cheaper, smaller apartment, I think the girls would rather go for 7 nights and rough it, as it were, in a smaller apartment. But the trade-off is they're sleeping on the sofa bed in the living area, and we do have a bedroom, but it's basically just screened off, and so there's not a lot of
Yeah.
privacy. And so the girls are going to be wanting to stay up watching movies, and that's fine. But we're going to have to just stay in our rooms to give them some space so that we get some space. And yeah, that's the one thing I've got to say, especially with older kids that, are wanting to stay up late and you can't pull the wool over their eyes and maybe grab some intimacy with your partner.
No.
That's kind of not anything you can do. So those are factors in where you're wanting to stay. Another thing I
Yeah,
wanted to
yeah.
mention, which I think is a uniquely American thing. Although I say that the French like to holiday in France, because I remember we lived in the South, and the people from Paris would like to holiday in the area that we were staying in. So the French do like to holiday in France, but I think holidaying in the US is very different to holidaying in Europe, for example, because most people in the UK will go to Europe. They'll go abroad for their summer holiday. They'll go to Greece or Spain or France or somewhere like that. So there is flying involved usually. Here, because this country is so big, a lot of people don't leave this country, and I feel that road trips are much more of a thing here. So,
Yeah.
for example, before we booked this Hawaii holiday, my husband was actually, he would have preferred to have done this. He was trying to sell us on this Colorado holiday, and we were going to have to drive 2 days to get there. But that to him was like a highlight of the whole thing. So 4 days would have been us driving, but that sounded great to him. And that's unheard of when you come from a small country like the UK to be driving 2 full days. But that in itself can be very stressful, especially, I'm going to say especially for young kids, being cooped up in a car. But then teenagers don't fare much better either. I think that's
Yeah.
quite a stressful situation, being cooped up in a car with, the car packed out with all your, suitcases or whatever it is, and you're all squashed, and that's stressful. So how do you navigate that?
Well, I will say for teenagers, I mean, mostly, I'm not trying to generalize, but mostly they're on their phone,
Oh,
like
they
on the
are. Oh,
couch
yeah.
or on their
There's
phone
no
in their room.
generalization. There's no generalizing going
So
on there. It's a fact. You're quoting facts here,
so I feel
Christina.
like you're just on your phone in the car now,
Yeah,
which could be making you a little car sick, but you're not doing much different things. You're not really moving. So I think teens have it better now as far as road trips go.
yeah,
I
definitely.
recall, as a younger child, going on road trips like that all the time with my grandparents. Like we would do camping trips or maybe go to Santa Cruz, which is, a couple hours of a drive and then stay in a hotel. And, we didn't have any of that stuff. We had to look outside.
Yeah,
Oh my God, right?
and playing games,
And
right?
count cows. And
Yes.
like we did road trip games and,
So I
you know,
remember. So what we actually used to do when I was growing up, we would alternate. We'd have one year we'd go to Greece or whatever, and then the next year we'd drive down to Cornwall, which is a beautiful coastline in the southwest of England. So we used to drive down there, and for us, that was a huge drive. It was about an 8 hour drive, which is unheard of in England. That's a crazy
Yeah.
drive. So what my mum and dad used to do is they used to set off around 7 o'clock at night and drive through the night. It was so dramatic. I don't know, to avoid the traffic. But so we used to do that, but we would do the same thing. We'd have games. Like my mum would be, we'd play. I don't know. We'd have a game going on where who can see a cow. That's so many points. A horse, you got more points. If you saw a
Yeah, or
duck or a
license plates,
pig.
that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
So we used to do
Yeah,
that. And I Spy and all of those. But yeah, you're right. We didn't
totally.
have any
My
electronics.
grandpa famously, he used to do this game where on the way back home, because this is when you're on your way there, it's like all fun and games, like woohoo, we're on a road trip. On the way back, you're just like, I am so effing done with this trip right now. I just want to be home. And so on the way back from different things when we would travel, he'd play this game called the no talking game. And whoever stayed quiet the entire trip won $20.
Oh, wow.
And so we would all work really hard to stay quiet. And then I also, because I was an asshole when I was little, haven't changed too much. Um,
Oh, you have.
but yeah. But I used to like try to make my brothers and sisters crack so I could get the money. And
Oh my
so I would
God.
like, do things like pinch them or like do stuff to make them say something. But yeah, I remember one year he got it all the way down and then he didn't really want to pay us. He like always wanted us to break towards the end. And he tricked me. He like did something to make me talk. And it was like I just missed it by like a block. I could have been
Oh,
$20 richer.
no.
Yeah. But that's the kind of stuff we did. So
Yes.
now with my kids, we don't do I Spy so much, but we do a lot of like music and like games with the music, like head, shoulders, knees, and toes and stuff.
Yeah.
But I imagine that when they get out of the toddler years, we will have a more boring car ride for them. And then I'm just
Yeah.
gonna bust out tablets. I mean, technology is
I think they are,
wonderful.
yeah, that is one of the situations where it's totally fine. Just give them a tablet. Although,
I don't give them tablets. Like
yeah,
my daughter, my older one has like an Amazon Fire. It
yeah,
just plays like PBS kids games
uh-huh,
and no internet access. And that's what she has. And she gets that for 1 hour during her sister's nap so that I can get a break.
yes.
Um, but in the car, in the airplane, we ain't got no rules. Like technology it is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Although I've got to say, teenagers still ask, how far away is it? Are we nearly there? They do ask questions like that. Are we there yet? How long have we been driving? I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I feel like we're going back to when you were 3 and 5. It's like, I don't know.
And they get
Like,
that GPS display where it shows you the timeline of
yes,
how long it's going to be
yes.
so that they can just look
Well,
themselves.
so the other thing is sometimes I will try and trick them and say, "Oh yeah, we'll be there in about 15 minutes," and then one of them will look and they'll say, "That's not what it says on the GPS. It says we're going to be there in 43 minutes." I'm like, "Well, that's worst case scenario. That I think they're meaning if there's traffic. We'll see."
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like in a perfect world we have a very nice smooth sailing trip for those road trips, but we'll see. I prefer road trips because it usually if you're doing a road trip it's only a couple days. Like, oh, we're going to go to the beach for the weekend and like, we'll be there for a couple days and then come back. I like short trips because I don't like to be out of my routine. I don't like to be out of my element. I am very structure oriented. And my husband, I'm more so, but my husband also is.
Okay.
And so when we get out of our element, we fight. And we don't normally fight too often. I wouldn't say that about us. Like we have disagreements, we have a little bit of bickering here and there, but like we don't fight. We get into fights, not like physical
Really?
or anything, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
we
sure.
get into like standoffs of
Yeah.
like, you better fucking run. Like I'm gonna get you. You
Hey,
better.
but listen, what
Like
we
I hate you right
yeah,
now.
but what we should mention to put this into perspective, you are expected to go on holiday with your in-laws as well, aren't you? So
Yes.
you
Yes. I should
talk
add that
about
I
that
have
because
when we
sometimes
were on that's
family
another thing,
dynamics,
Claire.
family
So
dynamics
when we went on our
play.
Disneyland trip,
Yes, yes,
that was just me and my children and my husband.
yeah,
When we go to like other trips, it's usually myself, my husband, my kids, my mother-in-law. She usually brings a friend, and then my sister-in-law, her family. So it's like a whole crew. And
Wow.
we're like a little like gang as we're going to
Wow.
different locations. So yeah, there's that other piece too. And I feel like, and this might be not unique to just me, but when I'm fighting with my husband and my husband's family is there,
Yeah.
it creates even more stress for me. It's like fighting at Thanksgiving or something. Like you don't
Yeah.
want everyone to feel like you're in like a rocky situation,
Yeah.
but you might want to kill your husband while on this trip, you know? And like it's just one of those things. But yeah, we get really hard. It's really hard during that time. And so next time I go on the trip, I've really got some tools. I'm working
Okay.
with my therapist
Okay. Good.
because
Well,
we're
you
going on
are.
this trip every year. I've got to get better at this. Like we love each other so much, and we fight like crazy when we're on these trips.
So
And
what has
so
your therapist said then? What tips has have they
the
given
therapist says that I need to give my husband some grace,
you? Okay.
and myself some grace, and remember that we're on the same team.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah.
meaning that we're both very stressed and this is very hard and it's not the best setup, but it's not me versus him and like, it's a battle. It's like us versus the stress and like,
Okay.
how are we going to get through this? And that he might show up irritable and could I just pause and not react immediately? And, maybe. So that's something I'm going to try. Because when I am stressed out, I do not pause and then respond. I just respond
Yeah,
when I'm
I'm guilty
stressed.
of that. It's difficult in the moment, but I think that's great advice from your therapist. I'm going to try that one too.
Yeah.
Because,
Same team. And
yeah,
I think even if we were to talk about it before the trip, because he and I have discussed this, we could even declare that. Like when we're getting heightened, be like, same team. Like,
yes, but just
you
that
know?
reminder because in the moment you do think it's you versus them. It's like,
Yeah.
you're on the total opposite side of the page to me and I don't feel supported and whatever's going on in the moment. So that's great advice. I love that.
Yeah. Another thing I'm going to do is really make sure I'm taking care of myself because there's a couple things that will create more irritation with me. Bad sleep,
Yeah.
if I haven't eaten,
Oh yeah.
which is a
Thank
big one. I forget to eat and then I get super hangry
Yeah.
and I'm horrible to be around.
Yeah.
Caffeine, making sure I have my coffee in the
Yeah.
morning.
Sure.
Um, and then just during the trip, if I need to take a big breath, just be okay with being like, hey, I need to take a minute and go out to the hallway and just just kind of shake off everything or maybe to the balcony that's child not safe.
Just
Just
don't throw
finding
yourself
places to
off it
like
though, obviously. Maybe the balcony's not
I'll have to work on that.
perfect. Oh, God.
But yeah, like it's just hard because you're finding that just like the nighttime where everybody's going down for the night and you have to be quiet,
Yeah.
there's not anywhere to put your anxiety or your stress or your fighting. So you're bundling it up until you explode.
Yes. You're right. It can be like a pressure cooker situation, can't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I feel like would aid us is that if I make sure that I'm feeling my best each day as far as like the way I look, the way I feel, because when I'm not dressed and put together and I'm feeling frumpy and kind of I have a certain attitude that goes with that. Versus like if I pick out cute vacation outfits before the trip and I do my hair and get up in the morning, like I'm feeling a little bit more with it. And being able to have that might help the next trip. Because I know last time I was feeling a little frumpy in comparison
Mm.
to everyone else at the hotel.
Yeah.
And I felt that, and I want to improve that next time.
So yeah, I did that on the beach the other week actually, just the same thing. I wasn't feeling great about myself that day, and so I started comparing myself to all the other women on the beach, and then that's not healthy and it ruins it for everyone else. Like no one wants to hear you moaning
Totally.
about. Do you know what I mean? Cal's like, I kind of
Yeah.
came here to sunbathe and chill out, and you're just kind obviously unhappy with yourself today. So that's a you thing. You need to go work on that. So I was like, okay, fair enough. Yeah, that wasn't good of me. I'll own it.
Yeah, and just like letting go. Like one thing that I'm going to remember cuz as I was talking about my frumpiness with my therapist, she said like you're not going to see any of these people again.
Yes, that's so true. The people that you
Like
meet on
who
holiday.
cares?
Yeah, absolutely.
And And literally, you might feel a certain way about your body, but like if someone is looking at you, it's very rare that someone's like, "Oh my gosh, look at that gal over there. She looks horrible." It's usually if someone's looking at you being like, "Oh, I really like her hair or her bathing suit is cute." Like people don't tend on especially on holiday
Yeah,
to like look for people to bring down.
yeah, yeah.
So, just perspective.
Good perspective. I think for me, the key, especially when traveling with the girls, is to make sure that we are tailoring the holiday around them, honestly, because if we are taking them somewhere that we want to go, but that really is of no interest to them, it's not going to work. So, even going back to this
Yeah.
Hawaii trip, we're staying in Honolulu, and the reason why we are is because Honolulu is very busy, and but you also have the option of going and snorkeling, or going to these nice picturesque Moana like beaches, but so that it's the best of both worlds for the girls. Had it
Sure.
Kyle and I going, we wouldn't have gone to Honolulu, we would have gone to one of the other islands that are maybe a bit quieter. But when we discussed this, I said to Kyle, I think we should go to Honolulu because there is going to be so much more for the girls there. They'll be able to, do a bit of shopping if they want to. And so for me, picking the right location and tailoring the holiday around them saves a lot of stress in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's such a good idea, and I think that during this season, like that's always something I bring myself back to as a
Yeah.
mom is like this won't be this way forever.
Yeah.
Like there is a season for
Yeah.
everything. And during this time when you're traveling with children, maybe you do tailor your trips to what they want to do, but they're not going to be little forever. And
Yeah.
pretty soon you'll have your own trips and you can do what you want. And
Exactly.
you can also find pockets where you do things that you want to do on the trip,
For
but
sure.
not have the whole trip be tailored to like only you.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's ways to do that. I think having like an itinerary, like a loose
Yeah.
itinerary, is what my
I,
sister-in-law would
I,
prefer. But
I think that's good. And
like I'm a little too rigid for everybody, but having like an idea of what the kids might want to do and then tailoring the day around that.
yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm pretty spontaneous, but when it comes to even this holiday that I'm talking about, I think it would be nice for us to have an idea of what we're doing each day before we go, because my girls, especially my eldest, she does like to know what we're doing. I think that might be a little bit of the
Yeah.
ADHD, but she does like to know. So, what are we doing today? And so having just even a loose, as you said, a loose itinerary, I think is a good way to avoid stress as well. I think if everyone knows what they're doing,
Yes.
then you can focus on that, and it takes away the anxiety of not knowing what to do that day, and all of that.
If you have a type A person in your crew and you're listening to us right now and you're thinking about like itinerary this and you're like, that's so annoying. I like to be spontaneous. One really good way to do that, and I will shout out my best friend. When I went on my bachelorette trip to Nashville, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast, but she was so wonderful in creating this like really loose itinerary for our trip where she would say, okay, we will be going to coffee. Here are a couple places we can go to coffee at. We can choose when we're there. We will be going to do some sort of entertainment. Here are a couple options we can do that night. When we're there, we'll figure it out. But it was like, it gave me a little bit of structure without being so damn rigid where we can't change course.
Yes.
And that helped me a lot. And I think I'm going to do something similar with my next trip is like, we could go here, here, or here for dinner. It will be Mexican food.
Yes.
Having it be like something kind of loose, but still kind of rigid, if that makes sense.
I love that. Well, I'd love to hear from
Yeah.
our listeners. What holiday plans have you got coming up, and just really share your travel experiences with kids, because we've all had them, whether it's a car journey, whether it's a plane ride. I mean, we just love to hear from you. We always do love hearing from you. And yeah, just share your tips as well, because something might really work for you that could work for someone else that's listening to this. So yeah, we'd love, love, love your reaction to today's episode. And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Momversation Club.
And if you've enjoyed today's show, which we hope you have, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a review. Your support helps us reach even more moms and build a stronger village.
Until next time, bye.